Good Wednesday to you, everybody. Income 831. Welcome to, are you ready for this week? Boom, boom, boom. 15. You've made it to the end of the semester. I'll copy to that. Strictly decaf at this time of night. And what do we have? We have the Jeff Gardner Wrights cup. It's not a cup from anywhere as say interesting as Yellowstone or the Great Smoky Mountains, but the website jeffgardner.online is still interesting enough. But enough about me. Let's talk about you. Okay, so we're going to talk about what we're going to do this week. We're going to talk about your questions from last week, and we're going to talk about what we're going to do in the final week, that is week 16 of the course. For this week, easy peasy. No readings, no discussion questions. All right. I want you to focus on completing your papers. And if you haven't done so already, make sure you complete the questions from the discussion sections, because reviewing the discussion questions from each of the weeks is your best way to study for the final exam. Speaking of which, the final exam will be open on the 29th of April and then, closed at 11:59 on the 30th. Your papers, as you probably know, are due on the 27th. So that is, less than a week from today. Okay. And the link is there in the assignment section. All right. So papers on the 27th. I'll open up the exam on the 29th. So this gives you, a day or so to sort of breathe out a little bit. And when I mean open on the 29th, that, like the stroke of midnight. And then it will close at the stroke of midnight on the 30th. So you'll have those 48 hours within which to take the exam. You only get one try. All right. I'll give you some more details about the exam towards the back of this week. But suffice to say, it's closed book. There's no notes, no other tabs open in your browser when you take the test, and so on and so forth. But for the exam, prior to the exam, I have scheduled a review session. This is completely optional. You don't need to be there. All right. It'll be tomorrow night. I sent it out in an announcement, I think on Monday, with a Zoom link. Okay. And it'll be Thursday at 9 p.m. Eastern Daylight Time, 8 p.m. for those of you in Central Time. Okay. I'll send the link again with the announcement for today's video, but basically it's going to be like this. When you come in, you'll put the link. I put it in blue in the announcement so it's easy to see. All right. Put the link into your browser, click on through. There's a passcode that I've also put in the announcement. Enter that passcode that will let you in. We will start, boom, right on the hour at 9 p.m. Eastern, and it'll last for no more than 1 hour. For the first part of it, I'm going to review key terms, key concepts, things that you need to know to perform well on the exam. That should take less than a half an hour for me to go through that material. Following which, there'll be an opportunity for anybody to ask questions. And the way that we're going to do it is, use that little push the little I have a question button, and it raises the cartoon, waves the cartoon hand. Make sure that your audio is muted. Have your camera on. We want to see each other. Okay. And I'll review the core of the content for the exam, and then open it up for questions by you. Okay. All right. So this week, focus on finishing your papers. Focus on any catch up, not catch up with a C, not a K, that you might need to do. And if you think it'd be beneficial for you, I'll see you in the Zoom call tomorrow night. Okay, let's take a look at the questions from last week, see if we can add anything to them. Question number one. What lessons have you learned from the article on blogging that you can apply to building your communication career? Kai, I'm going to take you because without getting into too much in the way of detail, I know that you, Kai, are trying to build a website and build out a career as a communicator, as a writer. So I'm assuming this is of particular interest to you, maybe others who are doing the same thing, but for you in particular. You're right. I like the article because it demonstrates that despite the seemingly simple act of sharing information online, privacy management actually complex and requires careful consideration. It emphasizes how people develop and negotiate privacy boundaries based on individual, cultural, and contextual factors. Understanding these dynamics is essential for effectively protecting personal and relational privacy. As I build my career in communications, I believe it would be valuable to focus on understanding privacy boundaries and deepening my knowledge of how people set and manage their privacy online. Okay, that is interesting, and you know what? It's an interesting question to navigate because there's this juxtaposition in an online environment where on the one hand everybody wants to say what they want to say, but on the other there is this tendency towards anonymity, or I should say pseudonymity. People taking, I mean, I don't, but I know many people that do, that they have pseudonyms with pseudonym linked emails that they use when they go online, because the online environment can be hostile and can expose you to unwanted forces, not just of criticism, but actually life consequential. So yeah. Okay. Question number two. Research shows that solely having a profile on social media and social media networking site does not necessarily advance the mission of a not-for-profit organization. What else must a not-for-profit organization do if it wants to use social media networking effectively? And by the way, for any one of these questions, you could apply the same lessons to yourself as you advance your career as communicators. Maya, the purpose of social networking is to facilitate, engage in conversation relationships by sharing information and interacting in real time. Having a profile and you're right, it is N. Not-for-profit in the room, but it doesn't guarantee a seat at the table. Not-for-profit should use social media to their advantage by being present and visible, and by using it as a tool as part of their strategy. And you quote the article. Not-for-profit posts should be a mixture of content across awareness, promotion, and call to action. Let me stop right there and make a comment about that, because that's absolutely right. One of the things it's tremendously important for not-for-profits to learn is people get involved with them for relational reasons. That is, they want a relationship either with the organization, or usually more often they want a relationship with the ideal or the actions that the organization represents. And what I mean by a relationship, they want to be included. They want to feel like they're a part of what's being done. It is extremely important, and if you go into not-for-profit work, take this with you. It's extremely important to build that relational aspect of the connection between the not-for-profit and the donor. It should not be that the only time that supporters hear from the not-for-profit is when the not-for-profit wants money. Now, in the not-for-profit business and in the communication business and in the funds collecting business, which is referred to as development, okay, interactions with supporters that are not directed or centered or somehow connected to a financial appeal are often called touches. So there should be several touches, like, hey, this is what we're doing. How are you doing? Thank you for what you do. There should be several touches throughout the communication cycle before and it's sort of in between, before and after requests for money. Otherwise, the sense of a relational connection goes away. Donors get the feeling that you only see them as checkbooks, and are only interested in hearing from them when there's a financial transaction involved. And I mean, how would that be if that was someone that you knew? That the only time they called you, maybe you do know somebody like that. I don't know. The only time they called you was when they wanted cash. And you're like, are we friends or am I your ATM? What's going on here? Don't do that. Okay, not-for-profits should curate conversation and engagement, bing, 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 with their followers and consumers, not just share content. Okay, and by sharing content, especially not just asking for money. They should expect conversations and response or interaction when necessary, demonstrating that they are listening and are interested in those who support them. Exactly, which, by the way, this is also another essential to developing a presence through social media. All right. It used to be, I mean, not that long ago in terms of the history of communication, but in terms of how we think about communication. I'm just looking around for something I can use as a demonstration, but I don't have anything right at hand. Okay, I'll just use, I'll just grab something as for whatever. Okay, it used to be that the nature of the communication was largely monologue. What do we mean by that? So let's say that this was a I'm holding in my hand here a newspaper instead of what do I have actually here? Oh, exciting house budget plus my to-do list for the next project that I'm involved in. But let's just say this is a newspaper. Okay, it used to be that the communication was just one way, from the newspaper to the reader, from the television to the viewer, from the radio to the listener. Okay. By way of communication and the nature and the expectation of communication, those days are gone, baby. Okay. What receivers, I was going to say listeners, but that's the wrong word. What receivers of communication are expecting is not monologue, but dialogue. They want to talk to you and they want to talk to each other. I once was part of a dissertation that is, I was on the committee. Fascinating stuff that looked at the frequency of viewers of the content versus the frequency of the viewers to the comments. And depending on the content, especially stuff that was controversial, in toto, that is all taken together, yes, that is the right word, it's not a dog. In toto, the views by all of the commenters to the comments for not just only their comment, but comments of others were as high, and in terms of registered interaction, as if not more significant than the viewers of the content. People want dialogue. I mean, I'll give you another example. Well, recently, it's about a week ago, I published an op-ed in the national paper Epoch Times. That's epic, like as in a period, EPOCH, Epoch Times. And I got some comments, and I responded to the comments. And one of the editors at the paper sent me an email, said, "Oh, you just couldn't resist. You should never read the comments." I disagree. Now, you shouldn't read the comments and get your nose bent out of shape as a communicator. People are going to be people, but I do read the comments and I do engage with the readers in the comments, because I understand that the beating heart of the expectation of communication is dialogue, not monologue. So make sure, whether you're working in a not-for-profit or you're working for yourself, make sure that you keep that in mind. And no, I mean, there are going to be haters and trolls and people saying bad things about you. Ignore that. Okay. Don't you don't have to engage those kinds of comments, but the ones that are asking you more, or maybe they're not being nasty, but they're saying, no, I don't necessarily agree with you. Where you can say, oh, well, the point I was trying to make was do engage with the reader. Again, whether that's for an organization you're working for or the organization is yourself. Okay. Question number 3. What 2 recommendations would you make to a not-for-profit organization that wants to use social media to advance its mission and goals? So imagine that you were running the show. Trinity, if I had to give 2 recommendations, the first would be to be picky about how you present a not-for-profit on each platform. Not just being everywhere, but understand what people expect from you in that space and learning and leaning into it. Sorry, not learning. It was you typed it right. I read it wrong. The second is to focus on interaction and share value, because social media works when people participate, as I was saying. Share and feel like they're part of something, not when they're just being talked at and have eyes in it, or do you mean on it, in it, eyes in it, eyes like as in eyeballs. Okay, but I get what you're saying. Let's go to that first one. This is extremely important. Okay, you, again, whether you're talking about an organization that you're working for, if you're working for yourself, you should have a sense as to whom your audience is. No, who's your audience? Okay, use a little demographic common sense. Now, it doesn't have to be, well, I'm like this, therefore my audience is like this. All right. I mean, I'm in my 60s, and by way of social media, the platform that gets the most use by people who are 50 years and older is Facebook. I don't spend a lot of time on Facebook because the audience that I speak to and what I write about is not necessarily, apples to apples to my age demographic. And I don't write like, oh, back in the day, I remember that. That's not what I'm interested in. So spend a little time. I mean, first of all, just get a sense of who your audience is, and then spend some time researching where are they. And then when you find where they are, look at the social media platform. What's the format? Okay. If it's shorts, and I it's just like I shake my head in discouragement when I'm looking at social media, say like YouTube, and I see a short and the bloody thing runs on for 8 minutes. No, that's not short. That's not short. I'm not going to watch a 10-minute TikTok. Okay, that's not what I anticipate when I go to the platform, and I go to the platform to get what I anticipate, which is short. So know the audience, know where they hang out, know what the expectations are of the platform that they're hanging out on, and tailor the structure of the message to fit into that ear. Okay. And then second, we say focus on interaction and shared values. This is true also if you're trying to build a footprint, whether you're trying to brand yourself or another organization, okay, on social media. And let's say let's take some of these that are that are more strictly post focused, okay, say like X or LinkedIn or Substack or Muckrack, these sorts of things. All right. One of the best strategies that you can adopt is to pay, and the algorithm will feed it to you. So you don't even have to put that much work into it, but pay attention to like content creators that are like what you do, whether you're working for an organization or for yourself. I didn't lift my hat straight. Yeah. Okay. Pay attention to those, read their stuff, like their stuff, and then recommend their stuff, because they'll get notices that, such and such or so and so liked what you're doing or has recommended you, or reach out and send them a quick little note. Hey, I read that. And it's like, that's good stuff. All right. Because what you're doing is you're building a network of appreciation to connectors that connect out to places that you can't see. Now, there's got to be some overlap between what you do and what they do, because you're dealing with like your content to their content, but there's always going to be things behind them. So this is them, and then like, all right, that they in turn will like your stuff or recommend your stuff. Now, most important thing in media, where a communication and building an audience, whether you're doing this for an organization or you're doing it for yourself. All right. Never, never, never forget the following truism. Content is king. You must have stuff that anybody gives a darn about. All right. So, I mean, it's like, it's like, I mean, I don't know, maybe people don't fish anymore, but it's like going fishing and throwing Legos in the water or something and expecting fish to show up. Fish don't eat Legos. Okay. They might eat fish food pellets, but not Legos. Okay. Have content that is compelling. Spend the time, develop your craft, whether you're doing it for yourself or some organization that you work for. That's how you will build value into yourself as a communicator, as a product, all right, that someone wants to pay for, i.e. give you a job. Okay. Question number 4. Given what you've read in this class or others, why or why not would you consider working for a not-for-profit? Okay. Austin, I've worked for a not-for-profit at Judson University for 9 years. I believe that Schmidt and Cohen have done a solid job of considering the specific strengths, weaknesses, and other elements involved with not-for-profit. But just FYI, Justin, the Schmidt and Cohen didn't address not-for-profits. That was Digital Revolution. But never mind, that's right. Smith and Cohen discussed the opportunity. Education is a reason why individuals would work for a not-for-profit. The general traditional non-profit provides an opportunity to educate others about a specific aspect of life, whether that be financial awareness, recovery, employment opportunities. In the not-for-profit college realm, student investment is the reason our faculty and staff are employed at Judson University. Okay, good. Very, very good. Let's see. Let's take a reason from somebody else. Alicia, I've given some thought to working for a not-for-profit. My biggest concern is money, which, is a valid concern for whatever that you work. I would love to work for an organization that aligns with my values and is doing life-changing work to make the world a better place. Limited resource budget and fundraising challenges are not for the faint of heart, and this is true. Okay, but then that's where my faith has to step in and give me the courage to see the calling without fear, worry, or anxiety. However, the work-life balance and not-for-profit offers versus working in a newsroom appeals to my spirit. While not-for-profit work is not easy, I believe it is more rewarding. And it as someone that has sat on the board for not-for-profits, set up not-for-profits, worked for not-for-profits, it can be very rewarding. I can tell you with all honesty, it can also be very frustrating. Very frustrating. And the reason that it can be frustrating is when you get a misalignment between those who are responsible for the message and the demands of raising money. I've been in not-for-profits where those that are putting the message out just they're like tone deaf to what the market is telling them about what, how, and why they'll give money. They have no ear for the adage, for those who have ears, let them hear. And I'm not saying, and it's like any business. If you're Chick-fil-A, don't try to sell Whoppers because you're not Burger King. So I'm not saying that not-for-profit has to be everything to everybody. No. But it has to be sensitive to what the market is looking for by way of message. And we talked about some of the problems with not-for-profits and guys like Dan Pallotta who point them out, and the role that things like advertising can play in bringing in support, and that it's sometimes like pulling teeth, and then it's can be made all the worse if you're the one that is part of the team and or in charge of coming up with the money. Like, you're killing me here, folks. So it can be very rewarding. It also can be very frustrating. Yes, you're absolutely right. It is a volatile market. And by the way, in terms of work to regular life balance, that is a ratio. I mean, I'd like to tell you, Alicia, that not-for-profit work is just 9 to 5. It's not. It's not significantly because it's often it is in pursuit of discretionary funds. That is money that people have left over after they've paid their fixed expenses, car, house, insurance, and blah, blah, blah. After they've paid their flex expenses, like how much do they spend at the grocery store? Do they go to the movies or not? Then that money left over is the discretionary funds. Not-for-profits are more often than not chasing that amount of money. And that amount of money is dealt with, talked about, and solicited significantly in terms of the time frame of how a day works after hours. Because don't call up somebody at work and go, oh, hey, I want to talk to you about supporting our not-for-profit. Da, da, da. They'd be like, I'm at work right now. Because in their mind, that time is not discretionary time. That time is fixed expenses time. So it happens that not-for-profit work often goes, you spend your 9 to 5 or 8 to 6 time planning, and then you drop into that discretionary time, which is after hours, evenings, weekends, in which you're soliciting the donations, or you're crafting the communication, you're launching the communication for the donations, and it can be taxing. Okay. All right, everybody. I will have one more video next week just to kind of remind you of what we're doing. All right. But for right now, keep in mind that tomorrow night, optional review, no readings, no questions this week. So work on your papers, right? Those are due on the 27th. Okay, that's Monday. And then I'll open up the exam on the 29th and close it on the 30th. And we're done. All right. Hang in there, everybody. You're doing fine. All right. I will see any of you that are interested tomorrow night on Zoom. But until then, remember that I think about you, I pray for you, and I will see you one last time on Canvas. Take care. God bless. Bye-bye.